Story 1. When I noticed how cold and distant she was, I realized she was being emotionally abusive and manipulative. She had been slowly and quietly breaking up with me. She was using all my vulnerabilities against me so that I would carry the guilt of the breakup instead of her. She kept moving the goalposts while I was always compromising. Story 2. I knew the relationship was over, not in one loud moment, but in all the quiet ones that built up over time. I knew when I stopped feeling safe to express how I felt. I noticed I was the one initiating less because it didn't feel reciprocated. I tried to make him laugh, and he brushed past it like it meant nothing. I realized my best moments no longer involved him. I started doing things for myself again, not to get his attention, but because I missed me. The silence hurt more than the conversations ever healed. I finally accepted that hoping he would change was exhausting. I felt more peace in letting go than in holding on. The knowing didn't come all at once. It crept in quietly. But once it became clear, I couldn't ignore it anymore. And when I felt that clarity, I didn't fight it. I let the ache come, but I didn't let it define me. That's when I knew. Story 3. When I did not want to do anything with her because she spoiled everything with pointless criticisms, meltdowns, and constant bad moods. I put up with it for years, and she was impossible to please. She acted like I was always the problem and completely stopped any intimacy or closeness. Then she acted shocked when I finally said I had enough and left. Story 4. When I realized that no matter how much I loved him and no matter how much we tried, we both had a lot to work on, and he wasn't willing to face his issues. All communication broke down, and all his avoidant tendencies became too much for me to handle. Felt like he only saw me as a limitation, and it was heartbreaking. I know he loved me, but vulnerability was too hard for him, and he wasn't willing to work on that. Story 5. When I heard from her less and less, she made every excuse not to spend time with me. I will never forget sitting next to her one time and feeling like there was a gigantic gulf between us. How did someone that close to me feel so far away? Story 6. When I almost cheated on her. I did not cheat on her. I resisted temptation. But that was when I realized just how unhappy I was in the relationship. If I was not unhappy, I would not have come as close to cheating as I did. I confessed everything and broke up with her the next time I talked to her, which, believe it or not, was my choice, not hers. She actually tried to talk me out of it. But it was what it was. I was done. It was time. Story 7. When we walked past each other in the house and did not say a word to each other on Christmas, I had enough of the silent treatment. I said I was leaving, and she said okay. Story 8. When I realized that I felt less love from them in a relationship than I did when we were just friends. When I was just their friend, they treated me as a friend. But after being in a relationship with me for a while, they seemed to treat me as less important than even some vague acquaintances they had. I am sorry. I am not someone who will stop you from seeing your friends. But when I feel like I am not even getting as much attention as people you barely know, of course it hurts. Story 9. When I see his truck in the driveway, it makes me angry. I notice that when he leaves, I feel a weight lift off my shoulders. It may seem small, but being able to fart freely is very important when you start noticing the little things. Story 10. I knew it was over long before it was officially over. I cannot pinpoint an exact moment, but we had zero intimacy and had basically been living as roommates for a long time. Story 11. After the first real date we had in years, I genuinely felt like we were building a connection again because I thought we had a nice time. However, he insulted me on the ride home because I enjoyed a Disney Marvel movie too much and said, "That's honestly kind of pathetic," like it wasn't that good. There were many other issues as well, but I think this was my turning point. The need to put me down for no reason during a moment of genuine happiness was not the first or last time. Story 12. I had a girlfriend in college. I knew it was over when I met someone who was actually nice to me and seemed to like me, and it hit me how unfamiliar that felt. That was also when I realized why my friends all called her Miss Personality. Listen to your friends, everyone. Story 13. When I realized that he never once took my calls and often ignored them. He would go days, sometimes weeks, without responding. Story 14. When we were asked in couples counseling, who do you think is more into the other person? I replied that I was more into her than she was into me. Without hesitation, she agreed. Then I cast my mind back over our more than 20-year relationship and realized that this was the case the vast majority of the time. Story 15. When someone blocks you on all platforms and says they do not want any contact with you, it is a clear sign that the relationship is over. Story 16. There were many signs that I wish I had been able to identify to lessen the impact, but I did not know until she walked out of the marriage. Story 17. Two relationships had very clear endings. It was just like in the movies. He came home, hugged me, lifted me up, did a little spin, and kissed me. Instead of thinking how romantic he was, all I could think in that moment was, I cannot do this even for one more day. When another man who had known me for no more than a few hours showed interest in me, his attention was the most I had received in over a year. Some stranger who probably just wanted to sleep with me treated me better than the person I came home to. This really broke something in me and made me realize how alone and unloved I felt in that relationship. Story 18. When I came home early one day from landscaping to surprise her by taking her out to her favorite restaurant, I found her with another man in our bed. Story 19. When we both began making excuses not to see each other or to change plans, it was a sign that it was time to stop. Story 20. When they kept telling me I was acting like a child whenever I had any type of emotions or was called sensitive for having emotions, then when I stopped showing emotions, I was called a robot. Story 21. I was married for 7 years and honestly was not happy for most of it. He was emotionally abusive and wanted me to stay home, cook and clean, but I wanted to have more fun. The end came when I found myself praying he would cheat on me so I would have an excuse to leave. I asked him to open the marriage because I was sexually craving other people. I hated going home because he was there, and being with him felt like prison. The turning point was when I fell for someone else while still married. That was when I knew we would never be happy together again. Story 22. When she said, "I'll leave you, I don't care," I slowly started to distance myself, but I was ready for her to leave any time. Story 23. I was in my teens and had the love goggles on at the time. A friend of mine asked what I had in common with her, and I genuinely could not give them an answer. Story 24. Well, after stabbing one of my biggest insecurities that only she and my family know about, she said to my face, "I cannot actively change because I have examinations." Story 25. I realized it was not normal to feel so uncomfortable in a relationship with a man. I am just a lesbian. Story 26. My son was hospitalized for a week with a severe allergic reaction. His face was so swollen that he was unrecognizable. I was terrified, so my ex spent that week avoiding us by searching for the right part for his Yamaha motorcycle. Story 27. Pretty early on, it was just not meant to be even though we had strong feelings for one another. I tried to end it many times, but he would not let go. It was finally over when he disrespected me, and I just did not show up and blocked his phone. Story 28. A lot had happened before, but my final realization was on Valentine's Day when he didn't get me flowers. He gave me my favorite cookies and a card that he didn't write anything inside. I was very hurt by the card, and I still have not gotten over it. It has been almost 2 years since we broke up. I will always have love for him because he was my first love, but it is very sad to think about how much pain I felt. Story 29. A 16-year marriage. I knew it was on the downslope around year 10. By year 14, I knew it was beyond repair. I stuck it out hoping something would improve someday, and also because I stood to take a massive financial hit if we divorced since I made way more money than she did. The main catalyst was the minimal intimacy by year 10, and by year 14 there was none. The last 2 years of the marriage, she refused to have sex at all. I repeatedly tried to convince her to get her hormone levels checked, but she refused. My ex-wife had no interest in changing the few things that I wanted while continuing to build up a long list of things I needed to change. Year 14 is when the sex completely stopped, but her list of complaints kept growing. I had to do a lot of traveling and long days for work during the busy agricultural seasons, often gone 16 or more hours at a time for 6 days a week, sometimes completely absent for 2 or 3 days at a time. We had no kids, and she didn't want any, so it wasn't like she was managing a chaotic household. We just had dogs. I had an essential job during COVID-19 and kept working through everything. She kind of despised my job and how much time it took, which was in agricultural technology, because I was part owner and had to stay constantly engaged. I brought home a hefty paycheck, and she had no problem spending the money. She filed for divorce, and it felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. We kept the divorce civil and parted on somewhat good terms. She and my mom are still good friends, which I have no issue with. And yes, I took a hard financial hit. Ironically, a lot of her issues were hormone-related. She is now on hormone replacement therapy and told my mom it has changed her life. I had been telling her that for years, but in our 16 years of marriage and 2 years dating before that, she almost never listened to me or admitted that maybe I knew something. Story 30. I had an accident and was in the hospital. They could not come to visit me because they slipped on the way and I never heard from them again. Story 31. When I started preparing myself to cry every time I received a notification from him because I already knew he was drunk. Story 32. The day I woke up and thought while brushing my teeth, I would like her to pick up her belongings and leave. Story 33. When I realized I was the one putting in the effort. If I didn't see him, then we didn't see each other. If I didn't text first, then I didn't hear from him. He never told me anything personal or about his life, only about his business and the people he worked with. He never told me he had cancer until the day he went for surgery and then complained I wasn't there for him. Everything that happened between us was always because of my attitude. The last straw was when I found out he kept a big secret from me for 5 years and lied when I found out. After that, I couldn't be around him because all feelings for him just vanished in an instant, and I became indifferent to him. He still thinks he did nothing wrong and that we were happy together and still can be. I can't even look back and remember a time I was happy or in love with him now. Story 34. 1. When I realized that she was talking to me just out of habit, I later found out she had been cheating. When she told me, I was completely blind to it. She later told me that she had been trying to hide her falling out of love, to persuade herself that it was okay. I was under stress from work, so I did not realize it until we sat down and talked about it. Story 35. When she stopped responding after I asked her if she wanted to hang out, she broke up with me about a week later. Story 36. When only a few years into our marriage, he was on a dating website for married people looking to cheat. Story 37. When she started making me feel guilty for the work I did and said I wasn't making enough money, I went to school and worked full-time, putting in over 80 hours a week between both. She got upset that I wasn't making enough time for her, even though I was pressured into it. Also, her mother was constantly on FaceTime whenever we argued. We were both 31 at the time. The icing on the cake was when she would have her best friend come over to sit and watch the arguments. If you didn't realize, that was the man she was cheating on me with for a couple of years, which I found out later. Story 38. It was 2 months after we found out I was sterile. I found her sobbing in the bathroom, talking to her mother on the phone about how her dream was never going to happen, and she was not sure what to do. I ended things so she could be happy. She wanted many children, and I could not give her that because I was sterile. I could not afford in vitro fertilization or adoption. Story 39. When she cared more about her ex's feelings about me coming over than how it felt for me to even discuss why that was a problem. Story 40. When I felt he was more problem than he was worth, I desperately wanted to be single. That is what I wanted to do. I eliminated my source, him. Story 41. When she wouldn't be quiet, I never met anyone who talked about anything and everything all the time. Nag, nag, nag. Story 42. When I realized that even if my alcoholic, cocaine addict, cheater ex-husband could remain sober, employed, and raise our child with me, our relationship would never be comfortable or happy again. It was over years before I admitted it. Story 43. Knowing that you can be vulnerable and your partner will understand you, be open to listen and apologize, overall being accountable for the shortcomings and working to be the best version of oneself without feeling judged or having your emotions used against you. This is amazing when both partners are in that mindset. Story 44. My boyfriend worked as an intern in a place where mobile phones were not allowed, so he used to email me. One day, I noticed he emailed me and copied the same email to his best friend, who has always been unpleasant to me. She is friendly and relaxed with guys but unfriendly to girls. Basically, she seeks attention. My boyfriend failed to see this and said they get along well. He said she is his female version and that I should get to know her. The minute I saw he copied the same email he sent to me to her, I realized the position I held in his life and that he would always choose her over me as his best friend. Nevertheless, he is my ex now, and he is still having fun with his best friend, who is happy because she won. Story 45. I do a mental exercise where I ask myself, is this the person you want to be with for the rest of your life? Is this the life you want to live day in and day out? If the answer is no, then it is time to go. I am not saying do not try to make it work, but sooner or later you have to realize it is not going to get better. Story 46. When I realized that going back to my alcoholic, cheating, cocaine-addicted ex-husband was the stupidest thing ever because even if he never did those things again, there would be no trust or peace in my heart ever again. Story 47. After she broke up 2 weeks ago, I didn't see it coming. Even the night she told me and we spoke about it for 5 hours, I just couldn't comprehend it. The next morning, when I woke up and wanted to text her, my world collapsed. Story 48. We were in Las Vegas celebrating my 32nd birthday. While walking through a beautiful, Zen-like Chinese New Year display at the Bellagio, I heard 2 men screaming loudly. They were throwing coins at the koi fish swimming in the small pond. It was my boyfriend and his friend. I quickly confronted them and asked why they would throw coins at such sacred, beautiful fish. My boyfriend proudly explained that the fish like and enjoy the abuse. That was it. After 5 years of trying to get this man to grow up and love me properly, I broke up with him the day we got home. Fast forward 6 months, and I met a wonderful man. On our first date, we saw a mural painting of koi fish, and he said, "The koi fish is my spirit animal. I love them." We ended up marrying a year later. Story 49. I knew it was over when a good friend of mine confessed his feelings towards me on a night out, and I realized I would not be able to forget how I felt in that moment. I broke up with my long-term partner a couple of days later because I did not want to waste his time any longer. I was feeling unsatisfied and knew that we had been incompatible for a long time, but living together and sharing the same friends made it difficult to separate. I wish I had told my ex-partner a long time ago how I truly felt. I had and still have so much love for him. He did not do anything wrong. It just never felt truly right with him. Story 50. When I called her out for faking post-traumatic stress disorder, I had pulled back the veil she had used on many men and people to project herself as a victim of abuse and trauma to manipulate her way. She was really upset that I exposed her and tried to guilt me for invalidating her trauma. I shut that down with, as someone who has legitimately diagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder by an actual clinician, how dare you use that as a crutch to gain validation for nefarious gains? I would try everything not to have post-traumatic stress disorder, and I certainly do not use it as a victim complex. I am ashamed to have it. After that, the trust was definitely gone between us. She knew I saw her as the narcissist she was, and she still tried to bring me down. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.